Oh, yes, we are live. Welcome to this week's episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined with Seth Wintraw, who unfortunately wasn't there last week, but this time, no technical issue. Seth is here with us. How you doing, Seth?
I'm good, thanks.
Awesome. Um, Plenty of things to talk about this week. Of course, it's going to be a Tesla heavy podcast because of the Q1 2019 production and delivery numbers that we're going to try to digest all together, and a bunch of other stuff too. But first off, let's start with a word from our sponsor, Dandelion. Set.
So Dandelion Energy is again sponsoring the Electrek Podcast. We love Dandelion because they are a very green company that gets New Yorkers and northeastern United States folks off of oil and propane and onto geothermal. Geothermal, if you don't know, is a way of pulling the energy from a deep, 5 feet and lower in the ground, and bringing that up into your house. You have cooling in the summer, heating in the winter, and Dandelion's found kind of a physics first principle way to drill and make it all a lot less expensive. The In New York State, they have incentives that make like a $38,000 installation costs $19,000. And even better, we have a little bit of news today. Con Edison, which is most of Westchester, kind of the lower part of New York, a lot of New York City as well, and Dandelion are partnering up, and they're going to offer Westchester homeowners an additional $5,000 off their geothermal installation, and that's as of, I think the news came out yesterday. So in addition to the 30% New York State back, or 30% federal, 20% New York State, additional 5,000. So a typical like 4-bedroom home will cost, an installation will cost around 38,000. After savings, it goes down to 19,000, and now with this Westchester incentive, it'll go down to around $15,000. Which, if you're like me, we spend a lot of money on heating oil. 15,000. That's like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years. Like it's kind of crazy. So again, if you want to check it out, dandelionenergy.com/Electrek, and you'll save a bunch and much greener for the environment.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's start the show with, of course, the Q1 delivery and production numbers that came out earlier this week. So Tesla is required to release the preliminary numbers within 3 days of the end of the quarter, which was April 3rd. And those numbers are going to be revised when Tesla release their earnings in a month or two. But for now, it's the best we got, and it is. I mean, we knew that it was going to be down, so it's not exactly disappointing. But there's a few things that are clearly disappointing in the numbers. So overall, what we're talking about here, it's 77,000 vehicles produced and 63,000 vehicles delivered. If you break them down between the Model 3, Model S, and X, the Model 3 deliveries were 50,900, and Model S and X 12,100. For the first time in as long as I can remember, Tesla didn't break down the Model S and X deliveries. They just bundled them up together. But first of all, let's take a look at the Model 3 here. 50,000 deliveries. That's down significantly quarter over quarter from Tesla's production at the end of the last quarter was a 62,950. So production was around 5,000 units per week, which is similar to what Tesla had a quarter before that. But deliveries, on the other hand, way down at 50,000 units. We knew that to some degree that would happen because of the shift from North American deliveries to European and Chinese deliveries in China. And we, from what we understood from what Tesla sort of laid out in the first few weeks of the quarter, there was definitely logistical issues to deliver those vehicles. The European delivery teams have never seen that kind of volume. Now, so that's part of the problem. Of course, then there was a second part of the issue, which happened later in the quarter, which was Tesla just making some very strange move when it comes to the pricing of the vehicles, when it comes to the actual buying process too. When we refer to the online only sales model that they transitioned to at the end of the quarter. And so those move indicated that Tesla was more having of a demand issue, but maybe it wasn't just a logistical issue with the European deliveries. So that comes into play. But in the press release this week, Tesla tried to emphasize that there is not that big of a demand issue that the Model 3 has, because they say that they only have 2 weeks of Model 3 inventory that they have right now, and they compare that for several months, which is the average for the industry. Now, I would have a little comment about that, which is that unlike the rest of the industry, though Tesla is, at least for the Model 3, it's a custom order only model. I mean, for the Model S and X, they did transition to a somewhat inventory model for a while. Custom orders are still the main way to buy a Model S and X, but they do build some inventory that they keep in some strategic location to move the car faster. But they haven't done that with Model 3s because of the long-standing, massive backlog of reservation that they got. So I don't know, Seth. What do you think about like a 2 weeks inventory from Model 3, which is around 10,000 units? Does that sound like a lot to Lou? That sounds like a demand issue, or is just like Tesla presents it at just a lot lower than the average in the industry?
It's. I mean, it is a little bit scary because Tesla doesn't really have any inventory usually, besides what's on a boat. Um, but I think it'll be interesting to see in this quarter if Tesla is able to meet demand, because the first people who get their cars, like a lot of people are probably waiting to see what one looks like firsthand. I mean, you got to remember, like all these Europeans, which the Model 3 kind of fits Europe better, smaller streets, smaller cars. They've never even seen a Model 3, like not in the wild, not in a showroom, nothing. So I think the demand will kind of go up and hopefully, erase a lot of whatever inventory is left over. Although, like, frankly, I don't even know how it works. Like, I don't know if this 2 weeks of inventory is what's on a boat or what's on, what's sitting in
I
a
feel like
parking.
the transit thing, they would have made it clear, like that's just what we have in transit. It's already going to customer. But the fact that they didn't make that clear made
Yeah.
it seem like it might be like a separate inventory, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell. Like a lot of things, like there's a lot of ambiguity in what's been told to us. So, I don't know. I mean, things I do know, like people who get their Teslas really love them, like the Model 3s.
Mhm.
Your Twitter feed is no exception there.
Yeah, if you guys go to
So
my Twitter right now, you can see me hugging my Tesla after 3 months apart, which is of
so
course in jest, but
right.
still the sentiment is represented.
Right. So people love them. Like people are going to buy them. They're a little bit expensive right now. Hopefully, cheaper ones come in. But I think the fundamentals are okay. Like it's a great car. Like they're getting them off the assembly line. If a lot of times we get a lot of noise from like the shorts and the media companies that kind of listen to them. That it's always big problems, but I don't see a long-term demand issue. I think these cars are going to kind of fan out, and somebody's friend just got a Tesla Model 3 in Germany, and they're going to be like, oh, that's a pretty sweet car, I want to go into this. So I don't see long-term problems with any of this. But in the short term, I think Tesla's got like logistical nightmare to deal with, kind of going from a Model S and X type of operation to a
Three vehicle
full,
lineup. Yeah.
yeah. And then, obviously having that weird, I think Tesla panicked midway through the quarter, and their CEO kind of panicked a little bit through the quarter. And like, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it seemed like the price movements were very
Yeah.
erratic.
Mm-hmm.
And the like, hey, we're closing the stores, we're not closing the stores, like that kind of stuff doesn't inspire confidence to customers or investors or anyone. And it's becoming a little bit harder, like more frustrating. Like, when I wear my Tesla t-shirt out, people are like, oh, that guy's crazy. Like, instead of used to be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of factors at play, and it's um, I think the fundamentals are good though. Like, hopefully Elon's kind of chill right now, doesn't do any like wild erratic moves. The cars are great. Some come with some issues here and there, but fundamentally the cars are good. Demand is going to be good. It's not bad now if it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I tend to agree for most part with you, except like, if we go though to move on to Model S and X, I think there's a clear demand issue right now.
Oh yeah.
Um, Maybe it's just the short term, and we can go into that. But all right, so what happened here is Tesla delivered 12,100 Model S and X, and again, like I said, they don't even break them down anymore, which leads me to believe that might be one of them that looks a lot worse than it should. So compare that 12,100 to 27,550 during the previous quarter, so a quarter to quarter drop of 56%. So that's something like you need to look at.
Yeah, that's a problem, and
Yeah.
I think the Model S is probably the one that's hurting the most, and the biggest problem is the cannibalization from the Model 3. As a former Model S owner, and when I got in the Model 3, I was like, this is better in every way for me. Like, a lot of people are going to want bigger cars, a little bit bigger. I mean, interior, like, it's not much bigger, the Model S. I mean, you get a bigger trunk. Like, it's hard to justify a Model S when there's a Model 3. Like, for me, I think there's like a very small sliver of people who are going to get a Model S when, the current Model S versus the current Model 3. Now, if we're going to speculate, I think you brought up a couple of times that there's a refresh coming probably in the next few months or so.
Tesla
That
doesn't
may,
do refresh set. I don't know what you're
oh
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, that's right. I forgot. Never mind. But if there was an additional, like the Model S should charge as fast, if not faster, than the Model 3. It should go significantly faster. It should have the same kind of screen. And we from that exclusive, we know that Tesla's working on that kind of stuff. So right now, it's like I would not recommend anybody buy a Model S, and I imagine a lot of smart Tesla folks are thinking the same thing. Like, either I'll wait or I'll get a Model 3. Now, Model X is kind of a different class. Like, it's a much bigger vehicle.
That's what I would like to know, the breakdown. I mean, you're right. Like, why they're not releasing that? It's so weird.
Yeah, my gut feeling is that Model S sold like 1,000, and Model X sold like 11,000 or something.
Okay, I'm not sure it's that drastic, but yeah, I know what you're saying here.
Yeah, it's down.
In terms of the cannibalization with Model S and 3, I'm not sure that, like, you might be right, but the thing is, Model 3 has been around for over a year now, and we really haven't seen any sign of that until the last quarter. So if that's what is happening, I feel like it's a little bit weird that it took that long for it to happen. Of course, there was also the reservation backlog with the Model 3, so, and now Model 3 is more like a wildly available one. So any new Tesla customer can come in and make a choice between Model 3 and Model S. So that might be the thing that is happening here.
And Model 3 just arrived outside of North America, so you still had Model S and X as the only Teslas available in Europe and Asia.
Correct.
Until
And
this
only
quarter.
the higher end version of the Model 3 available in Europe and in Asia. And those model, of course, are going to be more cannibalizing of Model S cells than the lower end version ones, which because they have a bigger discrepancy in terms of pricing. But I think that the biggest effect on the biggest impact on Model S cells and Model X cell also are coming from the anticipation of a hardware upgrade and the design refresh. So the design refresh, we have an exclusive report on that a year ago. So it might have increasingly have an impact as closer we get to that date, which we said was coming around Q3, probably the end of Q3, the start of Q3. So like probably like June, July, August, that type of time frame. But the other thing, and you mentioned that briefly, was probably a hardware upgrade in terms of the capacity, performance specs of the vehicle. The biggest indication of that was a Supercharger V3 event, which was only launched for Model 3. Model S and X were just briefly mentioned of having upcoming higher charge rate and unconfirmed at the actual rate that is going to be. So I think that had the biggest impact on Model S and XL. When Tesla said that, they basically says they're basically saying something's coming from Model S and X. We're just not telling you what. So that goes completely again. It's what Tesla generally does, which is not say a word until they can actually release the product. This time, looks like they felt like they needed to announce Supercharger V3 for Model 3, which probably did help the sales on the Model 3, even though deliveries were disappointing. So I don't know.
So there's this saying that Steve Jobs, the Apple founder, always said. He said something to the effect of, "If you're not cannibalizing yourself, somebody else will." And I'm not saying somebody else would have, but the fact that Tesla is cannibalizing itself or its own vehicles with other vehicles is probably the best case scenario.
You're right, definitely. Yeah.
And hopefully they're making some money on Model 3s that they're selling.
Yeah, well, the gross margin is not exactly bad for the industry as a whole, but there's no doubt they had a bigger gross margin on Model S and X. So
Clearly.
if you're stealing away some Model S market share with the Model 3, then Tesla is definitely attacking its own bottom line. So there's that to take into account. But again, we were talking about how the demand issue might be temporary, and I think it's going to be temporary from Model S and X also, because those upgrades are coming. For the higher charge rates, it's still unclear what's going to happen, if it's going to be the same 250 as Model 3. I hope it will. I think it might be. But other Electrek exclusive, and even podcast exclusive right now, because the post is coming a little bit later. I couldn't publish before the podcast. But we're going to see soon powertrain upgrade for the Model S and X, where Tesla is going to move to permanent magnet reluctance motor, like the one that they developed for the Model 3, but a new version for Model S and X, which is going to make those cars more efficient and going to increase the range. And there might be a few other upgrades coming with that. So keep a lookout for an upcoming post.
What is that coming?
Might be as soon as the next few weeks. That's the timeline is not as clear as the actual upgrade to the permanent magnet reluctance motors, but I have a few different sources that say that the timing might be fairly close. So it might be coming before that planned interior design refresh that we previously reported on for end of Q2, start of Q3, 2019. I think that will boost Model S and X sales, combined with the charging rate increase, combined with the design refresh. So depending on the timing of those, again, are not exactly clear, but it looks like they're all going to happen by the end of the year. So maybe it's going to make some people wait for having all of those things combined together, because as Elon Musk likes to mention, Tesla doesn't do refresh. They just include the improvement in the car as soon as they are ready, which might mean that those things are all coming together at the same time, but a few different things. Though that can be good too, because like the design refresh that we put pictures of, some people didn't like it because it's a similar, more like Model 3 style interior, even though there's still a instrument cluster. So you might want that supercharger V3 capacity. You might want the new permanent magnet motors, but not want the design refresh. So there's still room to play here. But by the end of the year, I think the Model S and X are going to be much better vehicles than they are now, which they are already great vehicle and definitely market leaders in their own segments. So by the end of the year, they're going to be even more competitive within the segment, and even competitive, if not much better than the next generation of EVs that are coming out. Though we'll still giving them a shot for sure. Like talking about the Porsche Taycan or vehicles like that, which a lot of people are putting the Taycan as being the first real performance Model S competitor, which I think is a fair representation.
Yeah. So that's other. If we go back to the main question, like what are the demand hurdles? Like there's the Audi, the Porsche, the Jaguar, upcoming Mercedes. Like all these things are coming. Some people may opt for those, so that could be a demand thing. Although we've never seen any direct evidence of that. Although I think Porsche said that their number one customer was coming from Tesla or something. Anyway, the other thing is, and I think this everybody kind of knows, but the amount is in question. Like the Q4 to Q1 is always a drop, like for everybody. Like Q4 is like when everybody buys stuff. Q1, like, if you compare sequentially to year over year, Tesla's up obviously year over year, not as much as you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
But like
But not
Tesla,
for Model S and X though. Model S and X they're still down 46%. So
right?
yeah.
But so I mean, as far as Model 3 is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
like Tesla had a like all out, like, they moving stuff out of the Gigafactory, sales till midnight. Like they just went all out trying to get stuff out the door before the end of the $7,500 US tax credit. So like a lot of people who might have bought in January or February or March, they bought in December to get that extra money. So, that's a major reason why demand for the Model 3 was lower, and a little bit for the Model S and X, because that wasn't the case last year. So I think that, there's a lot of things that are, why Tesla sold a lot fewer cars this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that is a big part of it.
Yeah, sorry, I'll lag for a little bit and I think I lost what you said. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of reasons for sure, and there are short-term reasons. Long-term, the demand is still good. That's the biggest takeaway for sure. Um, Now, real quick, we're gonna look into Model 3 demand in Europe because there was the launch in Europe during the last quarters, and per market, Tesla did very well in some of the most flagship electric vehicle markets in the US and in Europe. I mean, Norway, as usual, the number one market for Tesla in Europe and the whole world per capita. Over 5,000 deliveries in March alone, making it the best-selling not just electric vehicle but vehicle period in Norway. Though, of course, the best-selling vehicle in Norway is always electric, so that's not a big change. It helped the whole market in Norway push over 50% of all electric vehicle sales, closer to 70% when you call plug-in hybrids. So Norway is really showing the rest of the world like that you can transition to all electric vehicle sales for an entire market with just a few other more models coming up in the next this year. Really, like the e-tron still got some good deliveries last month, I think close to 700s, but they should still ramp up throughout the end of the year. Then the Mercedes EQC, um, they're gonna have a stunning year in Europe. But still, coming back, Model 3 is going to be the best selling car all year. I'm pretty sure of it. Same thing in the Netherlands. Best selling EV there. Fifth most sold car in the country. So pretty good again. Austria, 752 deliveries, a big markup for the first time. Sweden, over 1,000 Model 3 deliveries, making one of the best selling cars there too. Germany, also doing very well in Germany. And what to keep in mind, of course, is that that's all with just the two higher end version of the Model 3, which is performance version and the long range all-wheel drive version. They still haven't launched the rear-wheel drive version or the smaller battery packs version. When those come, those numbers should be dwarfed technically by the demand for those cars. Technically. Now we're gonna move on to the problem with those cars that at least the base one, the $35,000 standard range Model 3, still doesn't really exist. Um, Even though it was launched last month, officially launched last month, and at that point it was already late by like what, a year or something. Like Tesla first said when they started production, it would be there like in 6 months or something. So it's been over a year, so it was already late. But Tesla opened up orders for it last month, even not even last month, like I think last week of February. At that point, they said 2 to 4 weeks. Of course, it's a delay. As far as we know, there's been no evidence of any kind of standard range delivery. So Tesla has never delivered the promised $35,000 price point for the Model 3. And at the end of last quarter, a bunch of people that had actual delivery dates set were told that Tesla was were told by Tesla that they wouldn't deliver. They didn't give them a new delivery date, and they tried to upsell them to a standard range plus vehicle. Um, which is not exactly surprising for Tesla. at the surface, it looks just like another delivery daily. But when it gets a little bit weird here, and that's why we posted in our article yesterday about the vehicle not existing yet, is then when you got into the actual spec of the car, and we've been asking for a while, what's the difference between the standard range Model 3 and the standard range plus Model 3? Of course, we can talk about the interior difference because there's on one interior that's only for the plus version and one for the standard version. But aside from the interior, the battery pack itself, so what you get a battery pack for that, what is it, 20, 40 miles difference that you get between the pack? Um, are they different pack? Are they a same pack with one of them is a software lock? That hasn't been clear. Tesla didn't want to confirm that. But what happens, and when Tesla first launched a vehicle, we saw that they were listing them both at the same weight. So when we saw that, we saw about, so that means that there's just one new pack, the standard range plus, and Tesla's software locking capacity of the pack for the standard range version. So we reached out to Tesla, said, "Hey, you guys are listing the same uh, weight, so it has to be the explanation." And spokesperson Tesla was just saying it's a mistake. It's going to be updated. The website's going to be updated. Weeks later, this website wasn't updated. So I'm like, are you guys sure that it's a mistake? Because like it's an easy fix. You guys just put that thing on the scale and then you know the weight, right? And you put in a website. Then at that point, Tesla said that we're going to look into it. That spokesperson in person said they were going to look into it. Uh, Days later, I inquire again and I have no answer. So then I go to another spokesperson who again tells me, "Oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna look into that." And then they look into it. I give them 3 days. They answered me that, "Oh, we're gonna get you back the next day." They did not, and they ended up telling me that they have no comment on it. No comment on the weight of a car that should be delivered weeks ago. So in my view, they either don't even know the weight of the car, or or they don't want to say that it's software lock, or it's not software lock. It's another reason, and we just don't understand. So Tesla is being extremely weird about that stuff, and we have no evidence that this car has been delivered to date. So that's why I'm saying that the $35,000 Model 3, which is arguably the biggest feature of that car, it's been promised for years now that Tesla's going to be delivering a car at $35,000, a mass market vehicle, and they haven't done that just yet, guys. So,
and
um,
and and it's clear, like it's not something that's out of the realm of possibility. Like it's the price is getting close anyway. The next one up is only 3,000 more. The it's not hard to make a smaller battery pack. Like it's easier theoretically. So there's no hard thing to do here. It's probably a logistical error. Like maybe they can't get the canvas seats, or maybe they can't get the new battery pack
but say
perfect.
it then. Don't. Well, why it being
Well,
so?
that's an error. I mean, for me, that's a mistake. They should come out and say, hey, this is the problem that we're having. Sorry, it's going to be another 2 weeks or whatever. Or maybe it's so horrible, like they have to go back and redesign the battery pack, and it's going to take a half a year or something crazy. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're trying to figure that out. Maybe they're trying to figure out, hey, this battery pack, it isn't strong enough and it breaks, so we have to go back and redesign it, and that's going to take 3 months or 1 month. We don't know yet. Maybe they just don't know when it's going to. There's a lot of possibilities, but always going to be better to come out and say, hey, look, we don't know how long it's going to be. This is the problem. We're solving it. Not just radio silence, and all the owners or all the people who are expecting their car are just like, what's going on? There's no communication, and it's not the communication to the owner advisors. They don't know anything. They're just like, Tesla just tells us like they're not coming, and we don't know when they're coming. We don't get any information. So it's a little bit frustrating. A lot of times, as a media outlet and a big Tesla media outlet, Tesla will give us information on what's happening. In this case, frustratingly, they didn't, and it's I guess that's how it goes. Like there are no $35,000 Model 3s. Like they don't exist in reality yet. So why is that, and where are they? And hope it would have been nice if this story like rattled some cages, but it doesn't sound like it did because we haven't got any information.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tesla
Right.
always could use better communication in terms of, like you said, not just the owners, not just the internal teams, but also like with the media in general. That story felt so weird to me. Like I thought I was asking like a simple question, like very simple question about a product that's been announced. It wasn't something like I wasn't like getting a scoop or something like that. It's just about an unannounced product. It's an announced product. You guys are listing the weight. We are asking why the weight are the same for those two versions of the car, which should have different battery packs. So weird. Two different spokesperson gives me two different answers and then stop answering. I don't know. Get it together, guys. All right. Moving on to the full self-driving computer, previously known as the Hardware 3.0 Autopilot computer. It's apparently in production. So I don't know if it means that all new cars in production gets it, or like it's in production. It's now getting gradually introduced into production cars, but it is in production. We've seen some cars that are listed with Hardware 3 now, and Tesla announced it in a press release that it's in production at the same time as they were announcing what they call it an autopilot autonomous driving day for investors, something like that. I don't have it here for some reason. All right, sorry, I don't have the actual name of it. I think it's Autopilot Investor Day or something like that. But it's a day for investor. They were going to present the latest full self driving technology and the latest autopilot technology, powered by this new computer, which is now just called the full self driving computer or the FSD computer. And when it was announced for April 19th, but last night they pushed it to April 22nd, and along with the demonstration and everything for investor, the all event is going to be webcast, and we're going to learn more about the full self-driving capacity of the Tesla's vehicles, the latest improvement to autopilot. And Elon Musk also said that they are going to talk about their plans for a shared fleet, the what was previously known as Tesla Network. Though I'm not sure if Tesla stuck to that word anymore because they remove a bunch of that language in their on their website. But it's the Uber Lyft competitor system where once Tesla vehicle or autonomous, you can add your own car to the fleet, and Tesla's going to have also their own car providing a Uber-like service autonomously. So we're going to have an update on those plans as well as the latest full self-driving and autopilot capabilities of the cars, both on the software perspective and also on what can the new hardware do. Because of course the new hardware is is being put in the car right now. But as what Elon said most recently is that there's actually a disadvantage for the new hardware based on the software because they developed all the software for Autopilot to work on Autopilot Hardware 2.0, 2. Now 2.5, and so it's not optimized right now for 3.0, which of course though has a lot more computing power. So they're gonna be able to do new things on the 3.0 that they cannot do on 2.0 on 3.0 that they cannot do on 3.0 or 2.5.
Do you th-
So
do you think it'll be like the jump from 1.0 to 2.0, where it'll take a while to get up to speed? Um, some people say that hardware 2.0 and 2.5 still aren't where Mobileye stuff was. What do you think?
still today, people are saying that.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's obviously things like Sentry Mode and a bunch of other stuff, but like,
But actual autopilot capability like auto steer and stuff
yeah.
like
So
that.
MKBHD, he's got his car Model S back after the accident, and he was like, "I'm glad." I said, he said something like, "I'm glad I got this car at the time I did. I wouldn't have changed anything." And I said, "Well, would you have gotten hardware 2.0 if you waited a couple weeks?" And he's like, "Nope, I like hardware 1 better because."
As he spent a lot of time in 2.0 because
I mean, clearly no, but
yeah.
like it isn't a big jump yet, and it took a long time for 2.0 just to get to where
Yeah,
1.0 is.
that's fair. That's fair, and I do agree that for a long time, yeah, the first version of Autopilot based on the Mobile High hardware was very competitive, if not better in some aspect. than Tesla's own system on 2.0. But I think I wouldn't say that's the case anymore with the last like maybe 10 months or something like that. The last 5 or 6 major updates were so significant that I wouldn't agree to that statement. I mean,
Do you, I mean, do you think though that the hardware 3.0 is going to be a step back
yeah, well, I'm not sure if it's
initially?
at a step back, but I mean, I'm for sure it's going to be easier for Tesla because what we need to understand is from the first version to the 2.0, they went from an hardware from Mobileye and using a lot of Mobileye system to using NVIDIA system with their own software, built from the ground up with their own computer vision technology. That was a big leap. So that was a big issue. Now they're still using their own technology. They're just moving the different hardware from NVIDIA to their own neural net accelerator. So I don't think that's going to be that big of a leap for them. They're just going to get a ton more computing power. So they're going to be able to do new things with it. But no, I shouldn't think as long. But we're still talking about bringing a full self-driving capacity to a car here. So it's not like wouldn't all my bread heater. So
Right.
but yeah, that should be fun. April 22nd, we're gonna hear from Elon. We're gonna hear from Stuart Bowers, who since last year was hired as the new software head for um the new software head for Autopilot, and Pete Bannon, which is the hardware head for Autopilot. He's the guy that was in charge of the building the chip, the new neural net accelerator. Um, he was under, of course, Jim Keller before he left Tesla last year. And we're gonna also hear from Henry Kuberty, who's the head of AI at Tesla. So he's been working on the computer vision system.
So let me
Um,
ask you something. Why invite investors instead of media to an event like this? Or why not both media and investors?
I wouldn't be surprised if both media and investors are there, and they call it an investor thing so that some media don't get angry that they don't get invited. Some media like Electrek,
Right.
uh, yeah, because we didn't get an invite. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be surprised if there's no media there. There's
Yeah.
probably just going to be a select few that they choose to give the demonstration to, because I doubt it's going to be just a webcast. Very much doubt it.
Right.
Do you have any shares of Tesla right now? Are you an investor? Can we get in from just
I actually
throwing
haven't
your shares right
invested
now?
in Tesla in quite a while.
Yeah.
Although I haven't checked the price today. I was
Yeah, the price went down, Seth. Maybe you should get in and be an investor just for the 20 seconds or something.
no, it's way up, man. It's at
Oh, sorry, I
275 right
lost
now.
you for a second here.
It's at 275 right now. It's way up.
Oh, way up. It was
Yeah.
way down at the same time.
Up 7 points, 2.68%.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's been up all day. Yesterday was way down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it took a hit. This is like 10%. But yeah. All right, and yeah, another Tesla product coming in 2000, supposedly coming in 2019 that we've been all looking forward to. That's the Tesla Semi. When Tesla launched the product in 2017, they said it was coming in 2019, but we haven't heard a lot about plans for production since. So we sort of kind of assumed that it was put on the back burner with difficulties with the Model 3 ramp up and everything. But now Elon is talking about the production again. He said that they've been stuck in the logistic and production problem in the last 18 months, and now they are looking forward to getting Semi into production. So that was it. That was the extent of the comment here. So not much to go on. But Tesla also produced some kind of like video about the Tesla Semi prototype delivering Model 3. So some kind of media content being produced about Tesla Semi, which is quite rare. And then the other day, the two Tesla Semi prototype showed up at Gigafactory 1, and they were sort of put in display at Gigafactory 1 for some reason. We even thought that maybe it's going to be an announcement about the production being there, because there's been long time rumors about Gigafactory 1 being the location site for the Tesla Semi electric truck, but nothing yet. So I wouldn't be surprised that Tesla does make an announcement fairly soon about the plans for the production of the semi truck, because it's a commercial product. So it's not like Tesla's other product before for consumers, where they get tons of reservation, and then there's a delay, and then there's another delay, and then there's another delay. Um, I'm not saying that it won't be delayed because it's a commercial product, but I think they need to be clear about their plans to bring the vehicle to market, because they already gathered a ton of reservation for the Tesla Semi, and those reservations are from commercial companies or fleet operators. That those reservations, it's not because they want the coolest new truck out there. It's because it's part of their plan to upgrade their fleet, which is something they have to do as part of their business, and it's something that's planned years in advance. So they really need to know when their truck is going to come to market, and you're going to be able to add it to their fleet. So I think Tesla needs to be more clear about their production plan on this. And since they first promised vehicle to come in 2019, and we are now more than 3 months into the year, I think an update should come soon enough for all of us. Really quick, we're gonna make a quick note of we had an exclusive first look at Tesla's CCS adapter for the European market. It's on Electrek right now. If you want to take a look, it's just a few pictures that an anonymous tipster sent to us, showing that it actually exists. They have the adapter, so they've been talking about it for months, but we haven't seen anything. No update yet on the availability, but since there's one working one, because we see it work too, I have to assume that it's coming quite soon. Um, and that's another thing that's going to help Model S and X sales, because Model 3 in Europe at least had an advantage over Model SL in terms of charging availability for charging station, where they could use both Tesla supercharger, which are rapidly being updated to CCS, and they could use any other CCS station like Fastned's network or the new Unity network that's coming up. So there's a bunch of high-powered CCS station now coming up in Europe. We have a few too coming up in the US, probably not as many, but Model S could only use Tesla supercharger. Now with that adapter, they should be able to use both station, which is cool. And I'd like to think that Tesla would be able to leverage their work on that adapter to also not just work with the Type 2 mini key connector that they use in Europe, but the proprietary connector that they use in the US to CCS, so that Tesla owners in the US, this time both Model 3 and Model S and X, could use CCS station. Not that big of a deal if you ask me, because like normally I'd have access to a Tesla supercharger before having access to the CCS station.
Yeah,
But
it won't mean much for us in the US,
yeah,
but as things go along, this one also looks a lot less complicated than the Chatamo adapter,
oh
so
yeah,
maybe it'll cost a little less. Also, it kind of reminds me that, like, I think when the Model S and X get a refresh, I think they're going to get a charge port that's much bigger, that looks kind of like the Model 3, so that they can fit a CCS, natively in Europe, just like the Model 3.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the picture for the adapters right now, uh, the the Type 2 the adapter goes inside the charge port of the Type 2 charge port on Model S, and since it's pretty small, it has like to extend like an inch, so that the second part, the bottom part of the CCS combo adapter can actually fit, and then you can plug it in. So yeah, you're right. It probably makes sense to have a slightly larger charge port. All right, moving on from Tesla, Audi, the Audi e-tron, like we said, the starting up deliveries in Europe in a somewhat significant way. I mean, we've seen Norway getting a few hundred units, a few other markets are also getting a few units. The US is gonna follow up next month in May. They're gonna start deliveries for the reservation holders, and the dealership are also gonna get their first display and test fleet vehicles. And with that announcement, they announced the EPA rating of the Audi, which might be surprising to some, unless you've been reading a coverage on it. 204 EPA rated miles for the
It's,
Audi e-tron.
it's quite low, especially for a 95 kilowatt battery pack, but there's a reason.
Yeah, there's a good reason for it. So they are being extremely conservative about the longevity of the battery pack. So there's a huge reserve of capacity that you cannot access in it. So they are keeping that so that you don't see any kind of degradation long term, which historically we haven't seen a lot for higher end electric vehicles like Teslas, because there is some degradation, but it's not significant for the first few 100,000 miles, really. So they might just be very conservative on it, or they're not so sure about their thermal management system. But I don't think that's the case, because I've seen their management system. They've been pretty open about it, about their whole batch pack architecture, and it looks pretty solid to me, at least. But the 12% reserve on that 95 kilowatt battery pack, which of course make it a lot less efficient, because there's hundreds of pounds of battery pack that you're carrying around all the time, and you never get to use. So it's not really a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack. Well, it is. It's just you're only using just over 80% of it. Um, of course, yeah, it has different advantage to do that, even though the efficiency goes way down and you only get 204 miles of range. You do have access to a higher charge rate that you're able to maintain for a longer period of time. We've seen it get the 155 kilowatt of charge rate, and basically maintain it until well over 50% of the battery pack.
It's almost
Which,
up to 80%, right?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, 80%. You're right, and so that means you get a full charge faster, or at least, well, most people we're gonna stop it at 80% anyway. But of course, what we know now is you're not actually stopping at 80%; you're stopping like lower than that, because the battery pack is bigger. Still, it's a different approach. People are saying, "Oh, they're getting killed by Tesla and everything because they have competitive product that go longer, or at least advertise longer." That might be the case, or you know what, the market might finally realize that they don't really need more than 204 miles of range for most of their driving, so they might still go with the e-tron. I really don't know, to be honest. We know that it's been a problem for a long time. That kind of range anxiety that people have. I think it's been going down, though. It's not as big as a problem as it used to be. You could argue that's because of the charging networks going up. You can argue that's because of longer range cars too. But I think on the people's understanding of their own driving habits and how they could fit into electric vehicle ownership is also part of it. So if that's really the case, I'm not mistaken there, then they might find a good market for the e-tron. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. But next month, I'm gonna go drive the US version of it, because it's gonna be a little bit different from the European ones. 'Cause I get side mirrors, but um, then we're gonna give you another. Well, maybe not a full review from that, but hopefully we can get the car a bit longer term and give you a full review within the next 2 months. That'd be great.
When is that? Is that late April, you said?
No, mid-May, and I'm driving it,
All right.
the US version. Then hopefully they're gonna have some review units available for a more long-term kind of
And that's in Lake Tahoe area?
Yeah, we're going to San Francisco, to Napa Valley, I think. That
Okay.
Napa Valley is north of San Francisco, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we're going from there. We're going to Lake Tahoe, I think.
Sounds lovely.
Yeah, it should be a nice drive, and never been to Napa Valley too, so it's gonna be fun. Um, GM 18 months ago, almost to the day, they said they're gonna launch 2 new electric cars based on the Chevy Bolt TV. Those were going to be the first 2 cars that launched a series of new vehicles, but those vehicles after the first two wouldn't be based on the Chevy Bolt, but on the next generation electric vehicles that GM is working on. We've heard of what they call the BEV3, I think, the next gen, the one that's the Cadillac's going to launch first. Yeah, the BEV3 platform, it's called. But before that, there was 2 other cars coming. Never heard of them. 18 months later, the GM hasn't launched anything. So we reached out to them, say, what's up with that, guys? You owe us 2 cars. We like to have new electric cars to talk about. I mean, it's our bed of butter here, and bread and butter at Electrek. And at first, we didn't get any response, so we wrote up a report on it, just trying to shame them a little bit, like, you guys need to make more EVs. Then after reports, they came back to us with quite the answer, if you ask me. They claim that they did introduce 2 new electric cars in that the promised time frame. And those two electric cars are, I'm going to quote the full comment here from GM. We have introduced both the Buick Velite 6 EV and the Baijian E200 in China within the time frame we said we would in the original announcement. We did not indicate that what markets the vehicle would land in as we compete globally in the EV landscape. So those two cars, the spokesperson is referencing here, are like a Buick. The Buick Velite is like a Volt looking car that actually was supposed to be based on the Volt powertrain, but they instead updated it to non-electric powertrain that's like a matchup of uh, a powertrain used by the joint venture partner that they have in China. And the Baijian E220 is a like little bitty small city car, also based on the model by their GV partner in China. So two models made by a GV company in China, nothing to do with the Chevy Bolt whatsoever, and only for the Chinese market. So they went from, and I think you had a cool comment about that. Said what you said. If that was the case, your press release should have been in Chinese or something like that.
Right.
I think that's a fair comment. Um, because yeah, it from the original announcement, it sounded nothing like the two cars are coming. So I'm pretty sure they just came up with those two cars as part of their joint venture partner in China due to the ZV mandate that they have in China. And they said, well, we did release that in a time frame we announced for the two others. So I'm pretty sure the two other cars that were supposed to come based on the Chevy Bolt TV are dead. I
Yeah,
think,
either canceled or delayed.
yeah, I think cancel is most likely. And you know what? I'm not sure that's for the worst. And as an EV guy, you might think, you're crazy, Fred. More EVs for the better. But the Chevy Bolt EV is launched in 2016, and it's already starting to get old a little bit in terms of like capabilities and everything. It's not a bad powertrain and everything. It's still pretty good. Uh, but the only thing I think could make the Bolt more relevant right now is a price decrease. I think they're gonna have a hard time selling it without the full incentives. So I think they could, if they could bring the Bolt to like mass market production, make like a few 100,000 units per year, and bring the price down to something closer to $25,000, would be great car, would be very successful car. That's not the case right now, and putting out more variants of it, not sure would help that much. So if instead they are focusing on the BV3 platform, next gen platform that would enable not as much reliance on LG, which I think is the part of the problem with double TV, and I would assume would have still been the problem if you base other cars on it. So I don't know, but again, we don't know exactly if that might not be the plan. Maybe they just don't want to sell those cars anymore. I don't know. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, so with the Bolt, everyone knows I'm a big Bolt fan,
Mhm.
even though that there's obviously shortcomings with the appearance, with the interior. It's still very quick. GM made the mistake of kind of putting too much of it in LG's hands, and I think they aren't able to get the price down or do variants as easily as they would be if it was in house. For instance, you talked about getting the price down. If they made a 40 kilowatt hour one that only went 180 miles or something, I think that would sell incredibly well if they could get the price down under 30,000, before incentives. Um, they could also do a 4-wheel drive version of that and actually put a, kind of like an SUV like on top of it. I think both of those things would do incredibly well, especially if they could get, if they owned the technology and they could get the prices down. Um, but they can't. Like, part of a JV with LG is that they're kind of beholden to LG's whims, and LG is having no problems getting rid of batteries right now. Hyundai, Kia, all over the world, even like some Nissans, are using LG batteries. And so, if Chevy is trying to negotiate down the price of batteries, LG is like, nope, we got tons of people who are paying way more for them. So, that's GM's problem. I think if GM worked really hard at getting a Bolt like product, I mean, there's also like they should have sold the Bolt in Europe. Like, It's the
They
perfect car.
did to some degree, but they
Yeah,
sold their whole European operation at the same time they introduced it. So
yeah, but they should have just sold it as Chevy
yeah,
or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
They would have, I think, done much better there because
Hmm. Oh yeah,
it's a perfect European car. It's really small on the outside. It's kind of roomy on the inside. It's speedy. You could park it in city centers. Anyway, so Chevy's doing just about everything they can possibly do wrong with a perfectly good electric vehicle. Um, so now they need to hit the reset button. Now they're going to go up market with Cadillac. They had the ELR, which is a Chevy Volt with a Cadillac trim on it.
and
It
Cadillac
did
pricing, dude.
it did extremely poorly.
Yeah,
Although we had a guy review it for Electrek who liked it quite a bit.
but he did get a giant discount for it when he bought it. So
Giant discount, and they
yeah,
were even. I mean, it
the
was
price made no sense. That's the thing. The price made no sense.
right. So like everybody knows, it's a Chevy Volt. You can't charge $40,000 more for anyway. Hopefully GM has better luck with the Cadillac. Maybe they put the Super Cruise on there. They have a really cool car. I just don't have a lot of faith in there's certain people at GM that seem like they're really on the ball. Like we met Pam Fletcher at the EV, the first Bolt drive, and I was like, wow, this person is like she's got everything together. She knows what she's doing. And then you get like the guy who wrecked the Corvette. What's his name? Jerry Royce or something Royce, who makes all these statements like, we're going to support lowering the carb rate. So I feel like there's a lot of bureaucracy at GM. There's some really smart people there. Obviously, the Bolt is a really good car, but in the marketing and other sectors, I think they've dropped the ball on electric vehicles. Hopefully, they can reset themselves with Cadillac.
Hopefully, that's what they were doing and not just killing more EVs. Um, we're gonna move on to the last bit of news that we want to do today. But if you guys have any question for us that you want us to answer, but they put them now in the chat, and we're gonna try to answer them after this quick Toyota news that we're gonna mention here. So Toyota announced this week that they're gonna open up 24,000 patents as a license, royalty-free licenses for the 24,000 patents that are related to electric components and systems. But there's a caveat to it, which is that you can only use them if you're making hybrids vehicle or fuel cells vehicle. So if you remember back in the day, like maybe like what 5-6 years ago, Tesla opened up all their patents. They're saying we're going to try to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles by letting anyone use or patents. Toyota said exactly the same thing this week, but not all electric vehicles, just they listed HEVs, so pure hybrids, plug-in hybrids, PHEV, and fuel cell electric vehicles. No electric vehicles are listed there. It sounds like they don't even want people to make electric vehicles based on their electric components, even though some of their electric components have nothing to do with just hybrids. They are electric motors. They are electric controllers. So things like batteries, things that you can use for both BEVs or hybrid electric vehicles. So the way we interpreted the news is that it's really just an attempt to save hybrids vehicle, which sales are going down versus all electric vehicles, of course. And Toyota has been extremely late to the all electric game, which with still no all electric vehicles other than the compliance car that they released in the last generation of EVs, like the RAV4 EV, but that was built by Tesla. So they haven't done anything yet. They're supposed to come out with their first one next year, so we'll see what they do from there. But everything they said, all the language they use, always spell we believe more in hybrids as a transitional step until fuel cell vehicles work, which they never will, at least not in the consumer product type of thing, because I mean, it just doesn't make sense. You have not only need to build a different car, you need to build a whole different infrastructure, not just like charging station electric vehicles, but all the back-end infrastructure, because unlike electric vehicles, fuel cells don't have the electric grid behind it where there's electricity everywhere. You can just plug into it. You need to build a whole new infrastructure to produce hydrogen, and then to move hydrogen, and then to refuel hydrogen tanks. Uh, if that doesn't sound like the gasoline model, then I don't know what does. And so they are still sticking to that, and they think that hybrids is going to be the best way to do it until middle time, because of course an hybrid is still powered by gas, and that's a bad look for Toyota. I mean, everything I just said look like we are helping our friends in the oil and fossil fuel industry uh, hold on to their asset as long as they can. Am I being conspiracy theorist there, Seth?
No, I'm not a fan of Toyota these days. I actually just got rid of my plug-in Prius.
You did.
Yep, I'm fully electric now. I don't have any. There's no gas cars in the lot.
Mhm.
So yeah, just really disappointed. And actually, one of our early reviews was the Prius Prime plug-in,
Mhm.
which was the upgrade to the plug-in that I had, and it was quite frustrating because the engine kept turning on. It's like, this thing with Toyota and the oil companies. It feels like they're like, nope, you're gonna burn some oil. Like, we have electric, we're giving you great mileage, but you're gonna burn oil, like, or hydrogen, I guess in this case. Like, it just seems like they can't get off of that idea. So whatever. Like, it doesn't sound like these patents are going to be worth anything to anybody because everybody's moving to full battery electric.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what they want. Maybe they're just like, hey, anybody out there still doing hydrogen? Here's some help. So should we go to questions?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't seem like we got many
Found a
questions.
few.
Yeah.
So Daniel Mauricio says, how will the Taycan affect Model S sales? And I think the Taycan might kind of affect Model S sales. Clearly it's kind of aimed at the Model S. Porsche has been testing the Model S and testing the Taycan against it, so it's clearly in the same kind of realm. What do you think, Fred? Taycan sales?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that it's going to affect it a little bit because it's directly in the same segment. And from what we hear so far, the Taycan is going to be a pretty great car. So, yeah, it's going to affect them by how much. I know. I really don't know. We're going to see until the car needs to launch. And then we need to know exactly what's going to be competing with in terms of Tesla's Model S, because as we just reported earlier in the podcast, there's going to be some upgrades to Model S this year. So let's wait until the end of the year when we see the production version of the Taken, the Taken, and what the Model S will become at the end of the year, and then we're gonna have a good idea of just how close competitors those two cars. But I definitely think they will be to some degree competitors, and they're gonna still sell from each other.
All right. So Andy Peters says the new capital raise will happen on the investors AP4 demo later this month. That could be why they're
I've
calling it an
been
investor thing.
I've been calling for Elon to do a capital raise for a while. I think it was in the last podcast, the podcast before that, where I said right now Tesla is making the consumers and the employees pays for their issues, and indirectly investors are paying through the price dropping, but they should pay through some dilution by doing an equity raise, I think, and they should do a biggest one they can do, and from there they should use that cash to accelerate all their vehicle programs. The problem is that if they do it right now, they do it from a weak position because they just
Exactly.
released
They could have done so much better last year.
yeah, last year or early in this year they could have done much better without this relatively bad quarter. So yeah. Maybe the autopilot self-driving event might be a good time to just show the investor here what we got. Pretty cool, right? You want to put some more cash in us?
Right.
That kind of thing. I hope they do. I hope Tesla can get a bigger cash position and use it to build Tesla Semi, accelerate the Model Y program, finally make that $35,000 Model 3 real thing. That'd be nice, right?
Right.
Do
Yeah,
you
it
have any
seems like
further
there's a
questions?
lot of areas where Tesla could use some cash at the moment.
Yeah,
They could,
like their bank account.
right.
So,
All
do
right.
we?
So when do you expect to see the difference in Tesla batteries from the Maxwell technology purchase? That's kind of a interesting question because we don't really know much about what Tesla's buying from Maxwell.
Well, we're gonna start seeing something once they can close that name, name
Yeah,
acquisition. Apparently,
and
they
then,
have some problem closing it. They've been extending the deadline,
and then
but they did say
shareholders.
originally that they see it close in Q2. So we're just now starting Q2, so it's not that big of a deal. But there's a class action lawsuit from Maxwell investors, so that could be an issue. And Tesla had to extend the deadline. So we'll see. The next few weeks, we should have a better idea of them closing the acquisition. And once they close, then all their IPs is their IP, so they couldn't start using it freely. But I don't think they can legally use anything they have right now until the acquisition is closed, unless they do a licensing deal. And then why would you do a licensing deal if you're about to acquire the company? I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
So
Again,
Cedric Weinstein from Sweden says everybody, media included, is talking about the Model 3, assuming that's the case all over Europe. Not about the S and X anymore. So those two models have gone under the radar completely. Maybe that accounts for some of the drop in numbers. Let's see.
yeah, that's fair. Though when that happened in the US, though, Tesla said that it will actually help Model S and X sales because people were coming in. I want that Model 3. And they said, oh, yeah, that's going to be a few weeks, a few months, or whatnot. You want that Model S? That's in the lot right now. We can get it to you in 2 days. And that did help Model S and X sales. Wasn't the case in Europe, though, for some reason.
Beach Crow says Fred may be on Tesla's shit list. Oh, sorry. By asking too many questions and expecting answers. I think we found a certain PR person's YouTube account. Tesla's a business; they don't have to tell all. So
they don't have to tell me anything, but they do answer my question most of
tell
the
the
time.
people. Make a blog post. What's going on with the Model 3? It's not
Yeah.
hard.
I mean, I'm not mad because they're not answering my question. I'm mad because they're not answering basic question that should have been answered in the first place that I shouldn't even have to ask. So it's not about me being on the shit list or anything like that. It's about them just being weird about the way they want to communicate their products and their new specs and everything like that. Is
Yeah.
Tesla
So
their standard range yet? No, we've been through that, Mr. Musk, Aaron Musk.
yeah. So Matt Senkow says should the Model 3 should be 38,000 with inflation since the first Model 3 rolled off the line. That also might be a Tesla person account. I don't think I don't think that's going to happen, or I don't think people are going to be okay with that.
No.
Incentives are supposed to rise. Norway can afford their massive incentives because they swim in oil, which is true, which is weird and ironic.
Yeah.
Let's see
They
what else.
don't get high on your own supply kind of
Right.
country. Yeah.
All right, carbon fiber spoilers. What's the radio silence from Tesla on that?
That's insane. I had my Tesla Model 3 for over 6 months now, and Tesla still owes me a spoiler and a badge. They haven't delivered a spoiler and a badge, and it might sound stupid, but I bought them. You owe them to me, and you're not delivering them 6 months after the car. I still love the car. The car is great without a spoiler. It's great without a badge, but it just shows like it's embodies Tesla's difficulty delivering product like nothing else. I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. Maybe they should they should outsource that to like EV Annex or the whatever the performance guys. Like
but then you still need to install it. Like I mean, it's glued on, so it's not that big
yeah,
of a deal.
a
But
spoiler. Just like
yeah,
send it out. Like outsource that. Come on, get it
yeah,
done.
they keep saying that it's gonna be like mobile installation type of thing, so you won't need to bring your car. I'm like, all right, but it's not happening either way. So what do I care? And now I might send my car to California too. So like now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna
Road trip.
no, I'm gonna send it. I'm not gonna do a road trip.
So
But
you go across Canada now.
are you crazy? half of Canada is nothing. Like it's driving through nothing. But I was
Siberia.
saying that about saying the car in California, and then so what does it mean? So Tesla Montreal was supposed to install my thing. So now can I still get it in California, or will I ever get my sporter? Who knows? Might do a third party sporter. We reported on the more aerodynamic one from Unplugged Performance. Maybe I'll just do that instead.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I'm scrolling. No Giga Europe until capital raise.
How
All
do you think
right.
Tesla's energy department did Q1 from Crazy John? Pretty bad, probably. I mean, Q1 is not the best quarter for solar, first of all, and solar has been going way down for Tesla. They've been waiting for some kind of product differentiation with both new solar panels, which are coming later this year, so won't have a big impact on Q1. And of course, the other big one is the solar roof, which again we have no indication of that ramping up just yet. So no, nothing would be great in terms of the energy department. There's of course, when you say energy department, it probably also mean the energy storage side of things. Um, some indication that Powerwall might be ramping up a little bit. They've been reaching out to the people that want them for the referral program, and set himself here as some of them could be coming as soon as a few weeks.
Yeah. If I don't choose the Founder Series ones, I can get them in 6 to 8 weeks. If I choose the Founder Series one, I have to wait 3 months. And if I wait for a signature from Elon, it may be 3 months to forever. So I'm probably going to get the white ones.
Yeah, you're not gonna want to wait just for a signature from Elon,
No,
or
and I
maybe you
don't.
can invite him for dinner or something at your place at one point, and then he signs them there.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Could have the kids ask him some questions. Be fun. I'm
All
sure
right,
he'd love
that's
that.
gonna be it, guys, for us this week. Thanks a lot for listening and watching on YouTube. Thanks a lot to our sponsor, Dandelion, and we're gonna see you same time, same place next week. Ciao.